Hi, welcome to Dentaid. This is going to be the lorry that you're utilising over in Northern Ireland. So I thought I'd just run through some of the driving things to start with. There are two keys that you need to worry about. The first key is that's the driver's door entry, and that is the ignition and the passenger's door. Okay. Inside the unit, behind the driver, you will find one of these checklists. It is imperative that you complete these checklists. All you have to do is tick it off and follow the instructions just to make sure that you are checking the fluids and the lift on a daily basis and whenever it's going out to be used. So we've gone through the keys. Now there's a really important switch down here, which is called the isolation switch for the battery. Every time the vehicle is parked, it must be isolated. Unfortunately, these batteries do drain off very quickly and will end up not being able to start the vehicle. The outside lockers are opened by this key here. It is labelled MC29. All the lockers are opened by this one key. Inside here, we have an isolation switch. This is currently in the off position. This is in the on position, and that will enable the vehicle to start. It won't start unless it is flicked up. So just to be absolutely clear, when you turn up at a venue, you park in the venue, or when you leave the vehicle overnight, you need to isolate the battery. This is in the isolated position, which means the battery is not engaged and you will not be able to turn and switch the engine on. You turn it up and the engine will start. So that is in the run position. Obviously, once you're running the vehicle, you just leave it up. But when you come to have a complete stop and you're leaving it overnight or at a clinic, you turn it down and it's now in the off position. So there's a couple of quirks with this vehicle. It is a little bit of an old vehicle, but it is still good working order. The brakes are air brakes. This just means that when you put your foot on the brake, there is a slight delay between the brakes actually catching. You just have to be aware if you're driving the vehicle. The second thing is the fuel gauge. The fuel gauge has a mind of its own. We know that you can get around about 250 miles out of a tank. So just bear that in mind, and suddenly if the fuel gauge drops off, it doesn't mean say you've run out of fuel or there's a big leak. It just means that that you should try and find a petrol station at some point. So inside the cab, usually located in one of the cup holders, which is where we tend to keep it, is this key here. So this opens the power outlet at the back of the vehicle. So I'll just take you to that. This just opens this panel here. It's the only other one that you need to worry about. Just make sure that we don't use this. If this is lost, you can use a set of long nose pliers to open it. To open the unit, there are two keys. One is the latch key, and this one here is the door handle key. Where the lock is in the upright position, we just need to turn this into the down position, and this opens the catches that are on the far end of the door, and then this latch key goes in here and unlocks the latch. Sometimes you need to push the door in and the door will open. Then we open the handle and slide the door carefully and gently upwards. So now we need to get the lorry level and flat. First thing we do is take out the wooden blocks that are stored underneath steps and put them under each of the hydraulic legs. And the same on the other side. So now the wooden blocks are under the legs, we then need to go up into the cab here and actuate the legs. So the cupboard just behind the door is where the legs are. First thing you need to do is turn this switch, which turns the power on. Then you have 4 levers here, and it says here extend the legs and retract the legs. So we're going to extend the legs, so we push the legs up. You can do 2 at a time. and you can hear the hydraulic pump making noises. Okay, so now the vehicle is level, and you can lift the vehicle up so the wheels are actually off the ground if the surface is nowhere near flat. Once you have finished levering the vehicle, it's really important to turn this lever back off so all the lights go out again, otherwise we're wasting power. The other thing to point out in here is this area here. We should always make sure that this is on 2 cables, and if anything happens, obviously you've got your RCDs up here and you've got a reset for the RCD, 13 amp RCD here. So if there's anything wrong with the electrics, you can always come back in here and hit the reset. In order to get power to the vehicle, there are 2 reels that we need to get out. This one here with the big yellow one that goes at the back, and this one here goes to the front. Because these reels have got an awful lot of line on them, we need to make sure that even if the plug is relatively local, that we undo a good amount of this cable. Okay. Once this is undone, this end goes into this locator here and pushes up and in. And then if it's raining, please just store it underneath the vehicle. So to access the front, where the front cable goes, we use the same key, the MC29, that we used over to isolate the battery. This one opens this locker here. And in here you will find just a cable with a plug on the end. This is the front cable. So again, with this you need to undo as much of the cable as possible. Just to make sure that heat doesn't build up within the wire. And once you've got enough cable undone, you can then plug the power in. Before you plug it in, make sure that this is turned into the off position. So this is this switch here, just turn it into the off position. Okay, it's plugged in, and then in order to stop it from getting any rain on it, move it underneath. Due to the amount of power that the vehicle actually takes, what we do is we need to make sure that these are plugged into separate spurs. So if you can see that here, even though we've got lots of power and our systems are very resilient, I've plugged one socket into just this wall here, and then the second socket is completely separate off a different spur and is being plugged into our reception area. It doesn't have to be this far apart, this is just how our sockets are laid out. However, you cannot put them, try not to put them on the same line. Definitely don't put them into the same double plug, because otherwise it will likely to pull too much power and blow the RCD of the unit that we're actually at. It is very common that this happens, that you might just need to go into the venue and say that you might need to reset your RCD. But if you have two separate sockets that are not in line with each other, you should be absolutely fine. So as soon as the power is on, the rear will automatically have power going to it. On the front, because we switched off this lead here, you just need to switch this on, and you'll immediately hear, I've just heard that the water is just trying to go round. Now that we will not be putting water on this vehicle, so that will just switch off. We will be using bottled water. But if you come up in here, find that the lights should work. Oh, it does, yes. Just takes a while to warm up. And in here, over this side, is the surgery light. And then we go round and switch the chair on here with another button down the bottom, which might be on or off, and that's currently in the on position. So this is, the chair is now working and can go back into its normal down position. So you hear that at the moment there's a slight leak of air. That's because the bottle is off the delivery cart. So we'll need to put this on the bottle on the delivery cart as you would do normally. And then the compressors, the compression switch is over on this side and just needs to be turned on. Okay. So the drawers have got labels on them for where many of the stuff is. So we'll go round the vehicle now individually. So up here we have our PPE. So this is all our face shields and gloves. Over this side we have TP brushes and a few more COVID tests if you need them. Moving on down, we now need to start getting some of these things out of the sink, because please remember this is a travelling vehicle, so everything needs to be secured and put in the sink before you go. In our cupboard here, we undo these drawers with the key, and then we've got burrs at the top end, down to hand pieces. You've got your Safety Plus needles and articaine and lidocaine. We've then got gauzes and irrigation within here. Then we've got our X-ray and X-ray holders. We've also got a ultrasonic if you require it. I would suggest you just do hand scaling there. Again, moving across to this side, this is more of our nurses area. Drawers are locked, so we undo the drawers. So here we've got our suction tips and patient glasses and some GIC delivery, as well as our cotton wool rolls. Then we've got all of our filling stuff, and in here is our amalgamator and light cure, which are all in there, and they can be taken out and put on board when you're ready to use it. Over in here we have got our instruments. So we've got our extraction forceps and our luxators, both upper and lower, and then we have got our filling instruments as well as goggles and cleaning equipment. In here we have our end of day, so we've got water for the distilled water, and we've got all of our cleaning stock just there. This one just contains the compressor, so if you need to drain the compressor or move the compressor, you just need to switch it off and isolate it within there. And up in here we have all of our paperwork and our laptop, where our computer and all our paperwork we kept. Over this side we have our X-ray developer laptop. We then have extra stock of needles, our X-ray equipment, and as a first aid kit within there. And then we also have our antibiotics, additional LA, 3-in-1 tips. It's got 3-in-1 tips. And those drawers are currently empty, which you can fill up as you see fit. So it's really important. Out here is the emergency drugs and defib and oxygen. Can these be checked before clinic? Secondly is that there around this size there is the emergency contact details. These will need to be filled in wherever you are, just to make sure that anybody who's having an emergency knows the address that we're going to, and then GDC requirements of having your details of who is the nurse. So with regards to this vehicle, we have to remember that it's travelling at all times. So everything is strapped down. So here we have the lights that's strapped down, and we just undo the clips on there, and the X-ray unit. It is essential that before you set off, you go round, checking that everything is locked, brackets are all fitted, that there's nothing that can be opened before you set off. Checking the drawers, checking the cupboards, making sure everything is locked down, and things like this are not on the sides and they all need to be moved into a secure location before you then set off to go to your venue or at the end of the clinic. As part of your convenience, there are heaters aboard this lorry. The main one to use is actually around the corner. This runs off batteries, so you can turn that on to the flame, and then this will adjust the temperature. It takes about 10 minutes to build up, but this gives a nice heat within here. Secondly, we can use this heater just here on the floor, and we can just turn this on. Best not to overload the electrics, so use this one sparingly. So at the end of the clinic, we need to go around and double check that everything is locked down, as I said before, everything is secure, that nothing is going to be going run around while we are driving. So that's the first element that we do. Once this is all secure and everything is locked, we can then move to pulling up the legs. Again, we go back into this cupboard, turn the power on, power to the system. We want to retract legs, so we pull the two levers towards you. Sometimes the levers can be a little bit rough and dodgy, so it's best to use both two at the same time and lift up the legs. You'll notice that the red lights do go out when they are fully retracted. Apart from that red light, which seems to be staying on. And then we turn the power to the system off, and we can now shut off the electricity. So at the end of the clinic, we now need to switch off. So it's just a question of switching this button off here, pushing this back within here, and then relocking this cupboard using that key, and then doing the same at the rear. Pull this down to release it. It is stiff and does require some wobbling, but don't wobble it from side to side, just try and pull it down and move backwards and forwards. And now all the cables can be wrapped up, ready for your journey. Yeah, the wooden blocks underneath all the hydraulic legs need to come back in.